To put this into context for the Pacific, success stories such as that of Albert Moke's AHAB come to mind. Off the back of the 90 minutes intensive workshop by Pacific Trade Invest Australia, Albert digitized his store and sold over 100 pieces of clothing online in 2 months. This really demonstrates the transformative power of e-commerce for our generation and for our region. The same holds true for Ms. Leilani Reklai, the publisher and editor of the Islands Times newspaper in Palau. Leilani was one of the beneficiaries of the Pacific Trade Invest social media for e-business scholarship. As a result, she was able to increase her website traffic by 70% thanks to this program. As reported by the Pacific Trade Invest Network, during the COVID-19 pandemic, 35% of Pacific businesses pivoted to sell more online, with 79% of businesses now using online platforms. These trends have further stressed the importance of being well equipped to integrate into the new digital era and avoid falling behind. The Pacific E-commerce Initiative, coordinated by the Secretariat, is our regional commitment to build digital trade readiness. Under the umbrella of this initiative, forum members, partner agencies, and the donor community have come together to identify and implement priority regional actions to enhance the Pacific e-commerce ecosystem. These regional actions are included in the Pacific Regional E-commerce Strategy and Roadmap. The strategy was approved last year by Forum Trade Ministers after comprehensive consultations secured buy-in from all of our regional and international partners. The alignment of our partners' activities to its priorities has already produced better coordination of our collective actions, eliminating duplications, promoting new partnerships, and ensuring better value for money. This makes the strategy a truly historic achievement for the Pacific region. The Secretariat implements the strategy. This includes monitoring its implementation, facilitating resource mobilization, onboarding of new partners, and establishing a regional governance framework. Together with our partners, we have already mobilized more than $5 million to support digital trade and would welcome pledges of support from new development partners, including the United States. Today's digital trade dialogue was crafted to accelerate implementation of the Pacific Regional E-commerce Strategy and Roadmap by exploring avenues to mobilize American multinationals. The Pacific Regional E-commerce Strategy and Roadmap identifies several areas where multinational companies engaged in the e-commerce policy areas can act as enablers of the Pacific digital journey. From payment systems to cross-border and last-mile logistics to e-commerce skills, progressive partnerships between multinational companies and Pacific enterprises can address some of the most binding constraints which prevent our entrepreneurs from realizing their true potential as digital trade champions. The panels which we have convened today have been tasked to reflect upon practical projects suitable to operationalize these progressive partnerships. It goes without saying that donor partners remain essential to ensure the sustainability of these partnerships. I wish, therefore, to encourage our donor community to take good notes of the opportunities which will be discussed today and consider supporting their transformation in sound development realities. It would be remiss of me to close these remarks without expressing my sincere gratitude to the United States Agency for International Development for accepting the Secretariat's proposal to mobilize the Alliance for E-Trade Development as part of the enhanced regional Indo-Pacific engagement. A sincere word of gratitude also goes to the staff of the Alliance for E-Trade Development, to the Secretariat's Geneva office, trade and private sector teams, and our Pacific Trade Investment Network for organizing today's event. I wish you all well in your deliberations and look forward to the projects which will emerge from today's discussions. I thank you.
Hi, I'll go ahead and introduce you, Regina. Thank you so much. Thank you for Mr. Puna for your insightful remarks and to set the stage for the discussion ahead. Very greatly appreciate your time and presence with us. And now very honored to have Ms. Regina Mckenzie, the USAID Acting Deputy Mission Director for the Pacific. Thank you so much for being here, and please, the floor is yours.
Wonderful, thank you for that welcome. Secretary General Puna, it's an honor. Ladies and gentlemen, Bula Vanaka, good morning. On behalf of the U.S. Agency for International Development Mission to the Pacific Islands, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all to this important and timely forum. We are grateful to all of you for being here with us today. I would very much like to thank the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat and Pacific Trade Invest for their excellent collaboration with USAID in organizing today's event. Let me first congratulate the Pacific Islands Forum trade ministers for their regional e-commerce strategy and roadmap, and the Pacific E-commerce Initiative, which Mr. Puna just talked about. Very impressive results so far. We also applaud several Pacific Islands governments for their initiatives to promote e-commerce in their economies, from micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, to all of our corporate partners in the E-Trade Alliance. We are most grateful to your pioneering efforts that enable women-led enterprises to engage in e-commerce platforms and access new markets beyond the Pacific Islands. Changing gears for just a bit, as you all know, the COVID-19 crisis created economic shocks that brought about considerable challenges to MSMEs in the region. The US government, we've provided around 49 million worth of humanitarian assistance across the Pacific Islands, including more than 2 million vaccine doses distributed through the COVAX facility, and more than 550,000 doses came directly from the American people. At the same time, and most relevant to today's theme, the pandemic also opened new opportunities due to the significant demand for online and contactless transactions that accelerated the use of e-commerce. These trends will only continue or even accelerate. According to E-Trade Alliance's surveys, over 70% of Asia-Pacific MSMEs state that COVID-19 has led them to prioritize investments in e-commerce and other digital capabilities. This digital revolution has affected almost all aspects of our lives, including how enterprises conduct their day-to-day operations. Digital transformation has become an important priority of institutions and businesses to cope with the increasing demand for e-commerce and other digital services. We also believe that e-commerce is a vital means for Pacific Islands MSMEs to grow and access new markets, and for the regional economies to attract new investments. Over the past several years, the United States has been increasingly focused on promoting e-commerce as an important driver to create sustainable and market-based solutions to support the growth of MSMEs. The Biden administration's upcoming Indo-Pacific Economic Forum underlines the US government support for the growth of the digital economy in the Pacific. The framework centers on earning greater consumer trust in the digital economy, on freedom of access to information, on facilitating the use of digital technologies, promoting resilient and secure digital infrastructure, and on avoiding discriminatory and trade distortive practices in the digital economy. USAID has long supported trade, digitization, and enabling e-commerce through various initiatives, including the flagship E-Trade Alliance. USAID, we're also stepping up assistance to the region to promote robust and resilient digital infrastructure and to support policies that enable safe and secure digital ecosystems that upgrade digital skills and advance digital government solutions. That said, we recognize that the journey toward digital transformation of MSMEs has many challenges, as as it requires financial resources and technical capacities that may not be readily available. Therefore, we closely work with the private sector and encourage public-private partnerships to mobilize resources and local expertise that will help accelerate the digital transformation of MSMEs and their adoption of e-commerce. Our policy also seeks to promote private sector-led economic growth as a means to solve development challenges. We very much believe in local businesses as engines of growth and development. Today's event forms part of our longstanding efforts to promote international trade and digitization, ranging from supporting the adoption of broadband technologies to catalyzing fintech companies around the world. And in this event today, I'm told that we will have the opportunity to hear some of the success stories of entrepreneurs who have been the region's e-commerce pioneers. And I believe Mr. Puna mentioned a few. They are a great inspiration for our work as they exemplify extraordinary resilience in these challenging times. Today's event will also showcase pilot initiatives that support regional MSMEs to have better access to domestic and international markets, including digital payment systems and logistics solutions that are much needed by MSMEs in the region. Many of you are the pioneers of the region's digital economy, so we look forward to your leadership in charting the direction toward an accelerated digital transformation of MSMEs in the Pacific Islands. With that, I'll close by saying I wish everyone a productive session this morning. I'm very happy to be here with you and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mckenzie, for those insightful remarks and for your presence here today, and also for USAID's strong support of the work of the E-Trade Alliance in this event. Now, I would like to turn to Mr. Noah Kubak, the Program Advisor for Trade at the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat. Mr. Noah, or Mr. Kubak?
Much, Erika, senior officials, experts, as well as our stakeholders, thank you for making time this morning. I just wanted to provide you just a short background of the Pacific Regional e-commerce strategy and roadmap. So have you, as you have already heard from the Secretary General as well as Ms. Mckenzie, that this work that we are doing is on the basis of, I think I would say, Aid for Trade Strategy 2020-2025. So one of the components of this work is with respect to supporting our island countries in the Pacific to address the issue of e-commerce. And this work has started already back in 2017, and we have initiated this initiative, and in 2017 to 2021, we have undertaken more than 12 e-readiness assessment of member countries, and since 2021, Forum Trade Ministers meeting have endorsed this e-commerce strategy and roadmap. So now we are in the second phase of the implementation, and just to give you also an update of where we are in terms of supporting some of our forum island countries developing their e-readiness, in particular e-commerce strategy. I think for so far we have 4 countries that have already developed, they are in the process of analyzing the e-readiness assessment, but also e-commerce strategy. And thank some of our partners as well that they are actually supporting us in developing those strategies. So the strategy on private sector angle, you will also note in the strategy that our work with E-Trade Alliance started from the identifications of policy areas and the measures which can benefit for progressive partnership with American multinationals. And we thank our partners this session to actually provide their feedback, but also from the region what the needs, but also the challenges they are facing. Skill is one of these areas. So for example, the strategy notes how leading tech multinationals have an important role.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but your screen, are you able, the screen share is not working right now. Are you able to do that from the presentation that you have?
So as I was just mentioning that skills is one of these areas. So for example, the strategy notes how leading tech multinationals have an important role to play in strengthening the Pacific startup ecosystem. And from this point of view, a regional trainings and accelerations program leveraging the competencies, network, and tools of China can help with startup while inspiring subsequent waves of companies. Strategy also note how leading international organizations and training institutions can complement the work of tech multinationals to ensure best e-commerce practices from around the world and the region are disseminated locally. Virtual distance learning programs are the natural candidate to upskill as they can be easily followed from motivated participants across the region. So these considerations, as you can see the screen, motivates the inclusion of priority 6.1.3 and 6.1.4. So next slide, please. So on the payment under measures 5.2.2, the strategy also notes how for businesses to the applications process for payment gateways hosted by banks tends to be specifically rigorous, intensive, but also invasive, which serves as a deterrent to applications. Fees and charges to secure and maintain access to payment gateways are high and reduce profitability. This is why under measure 5.2.2, the strategy recommends partnership with international banks to develop more user-friendly and cost-effective solutions. On cross-border logistics, the Pacific Island Export Survey 2020 conducted by Pacific Trade Invest Network reveals that freight costs are one of the top 3 barriers to export faced by Pacific businesses. So freight assistance package such as the one developed by the Pacific Trade Invest Network can support Pacific exporters, but also in the area, partnership with global multinationals can provide an avenue for e-commerce businesses to reduce cost to access to the international market. Finally, on last mile logistics, the strategy incentivizes partnership with private providers and of geolocation services that can reduce cost of e-commerce by facilitating physical addressability and either complement or represent a low-cost alternative to physical. Next slide, please. So in summary, today's dialogue is the attempt to identify practical solutions to some of the most pressing needs identified by the Pacific Trade Regional E-commerce Strategy and Roadmap. By doing so, we will further accelerate the regional trade readiness, start responding to directions of our members, gave us when they approved the e-commerce initiative. And for that, I thank you and wish you all a very good deliberations today. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Kati Suominen, I'm the founder and CEO of Next Trade Group and the technical director of E-Trade Alliance. First of all, want to appreciate all of you for joining this important dialogue. I think this is extremely timely and appreciate very much the participants who have joined us. I see many people on the call, so thank you very, very much. And also want to, of course, appreciate all our panelists who are joining from different parts of the world for this dialogue. Thank you very much for your contributions and your time, and we look forward to an excellent dialogue with you. Certainly want to appreciate and thank Pacific Alliance former Secretariat and Pacific Trade and Invest for their participation and collaboration in organizing this event. This has been a truly collaborative endeavor between the Trade Alliance and the Pacific Alliance Forum Secretariat staff, and very much appreciate this fantastic collaboration. I also want to really highlight the role of Andrea Giacomelli, who is the advisor for PIFs, for his support, and he's been absolutely instrumental in pulling this together with us and also catalyzing the opportunities that we'll hear about during this meeting. And certainly want to thank E-Trade Alliance partners for your participation as always to these events and propelling the e-commerce ecosystem forward around the world. And certainly also USAID, thank you very much. We couldn't do this without the support of USAID, and are very grateful for all the opportunities to work together around the world. So I thought to share a couple of slides just for everybody to get a sense of what the E-Trade Alliance is all about, and then we'll dive into the conversations. Let's see. Coming up, right? Everybody can see? Yes?
Yep.
Oh, very good, I assume. Okay, very good. So the E-Trade Alliance is a public-private partnership between USAID and 12 leading companies. Logos are here below. And you'll probably recognize most of them, big global brands that lead the global e-commerce ecosystem. And our purpose is to increase the number of SMEs that sell online, including on online marketplaces, as well as increase SME sales volumes. And of course, you know, we come to this from many different angles. One angle is the policy and enabling environment that we look to support around the world, something that you're working on a great deal in the Pacific Islands. And this dialogue is in fact part of this work stream, if you will. We are also working very heavily with many of our partners on SME capacity building. So really at the ground zero, if you want, with SMEs around the world, training them about how to get on marketplaces, how to do digital marketing, how to improve their e-commerce readiness. And then we pilot different initiatives also in the areas that are critical that have been raised already during this discussion on logistics and access to finance for SMEs, particularly leveraging fintechs and technology solutions for logistics providers, as well as digital addressing solutions that you will hear about today. And finally, we have a very strong focus on inclusive trade. So focusing on the role of women-led firms in trade, as well as rural enterprises. And of course, we have these cross-cutting themes of SMEs digital transformation and also bringing new constituencies into e-commerce development, like local governments around the world, not only national governments, but also local ones. There's a website there at the bottom if you wish to look a bit further what we're doing. Just to put these pieces together, we have all kinds of companies in our alliance, and many of you probably already see how they play a role in e-commerce and e-commerce development. How we conceptualize this from our side is thinking of this as the sales cycle and what we need to solve for an SME to be able to complete their sales cycle from accessing financing to purchasing supplies to marketing, sales, and then finally payments and delivery all the way to the last mile. And of course, improving their operations as a business and carrying out the after-sale processes that are so critical for e-commerce. And our partners play a role in each of these areas and are supporting initiatives globally. Of course, here are also, you see some of the text, they capture some of the free capabilities that our partners also offer for companies, different trainings, different, those of you, many on the call that can use these free services. So we work all around the world. We're very proud to have an arrow soon pointing to the Pacific region, as well as we're carrying out this dialogue and look forward to having many pointers there as some of the intended pilots get on the way. Our business model is really robust and rigorous. We start from research and these policy dialogues and then go to programmatic design, implementation. And now we're in the third year of our implementation. So we're already really paying attention to monitoring and learning agenda, how we learn from all the efforts that our partners have made in e-commerce development. You'll see on our website, there are many individual initiatives that our partners are carrying out around the world in different markets, training SMEs and piloting new types of initiatives like digital identity tools and payment systems for farmers, for instance, around the world. So partners are going around the world and selecting projects that they feel are very important for SMEs in that particular country or region. We also work together, bringing partners' capabilities together. And I think today we'll hear more about those types of multi-partner initiatives, if you will, where we bring together the different capabilities that the partners offer to benefit any one SME. What we see around the world, and I'm sure this resonates with you in the Pacific Islands, we see these 5 segments of firms, and many SMEs around the world are still social sellers, selling on Facebook and marketplaces, or Facebook and social platforms. But more and more companies are also graduating now as a result of COVID, really accelerating their journey to becoming online sellers and also starting to sell on local marketplaces, as well as gradually global marketplaces like Amazon, Etsy, eBay, and others. And we, as the Alliance, look to accelerate this journey by working on the 2 axes, essentially working on SMEs digital transformation and the enabling environment for e-commerce. And how we are coming to this through multi-partners initiatives is, for instance, here's an example of what we're doing in Ecuador. We're working with various partners, e-commerce institute, MasterCard, DHL, eBay, as well as Amazon, on enabling Ecuadorian companies to use global marketplaces and export, particularly to the United States in this case. And we're selecting companies that are already quite e-commerce ready, if you will. They have their own online stores, but they need a bit of a push to get on marketplaces that then enable them to scale their sales and export globally. And we also are focusing in another pilot on making social sellers into more formal online sellers. So helping them gain formal online sales capabilities and payment capabilities as well. Working again with marketplaces like Canasta Rosa and DHL, MasterCard, and others. So this is a bit of a feel for you, hopefully, about the business model of the Alliance and how we pool the capabilities of our partners in order to maximize the impact on SMEs and always accelerate their journey through upward to greater growth and exports through e-commerce. Let's see. So why are we so excited? I'll give you just highlights. I think many of the speakers have already spoken about the importance of e-commerce for SMEs. We are excited about e-commerce because it enables SME trade. We look at these offline sellers around the world, and typically 10%, 20%, if you're lucky, 30% of them export. But when we look at the online sellers and marketplace sellers, 70, 80% of them export. And oftentimes export to multiple markets. So these marketplace sellers are also highly diversified. And this is one of the exciting patterns that we see in just about every single market around the world that we study, and is guiding the Alliance's activities very much. This is our North Star, if you will, to accelerate these digital journeys of SMEs so that they can export and diversify their sales through e-commerce. We also see these broader benefits that e-commerce imparts on SMEs. They, of course, get new domestic customers by adopting digital capabilities. They improve their cash flow. They improve their revenue. They have better margins when they can obviate sometimes or bypass the middlemen. And distributors, and can go direct to consumer. And then, of course, the marketplaces also benefits from e-commerce journeys. During COVID, we also that the companies marketplaces and exporting were playing purely in domestic markets and not leveraging digital platforms. So we're seeing these correlations between growth and markets. Just about every market, again, that we have surveyed. We also see that the companies that are already using marketplaces are highly digitized, right? They use their online sales capabilities, but they have digitized their entire enterprises in order to streamline and scale their operations and businesses to become a global online seller and exporter. So there's much work to be done, but we're starting from one place, and that place is oftentimes mobile payments, social media use, and then bit by bit enabling SMEs to acquire further technologies as well as leverage digital services that surround them. And that's what the Alliance is all about, not only enabling SMEs to carry out the kind of digitization of their sales channels, but also digitizing their enterprises more fundamentally, digitizing their supply chains, their operations, and so forth, in order to make them more competitive. The one last point I'll leave you with, what we've seen in study after study is that e-commerce seems to be leveling the playing field between men and women-led firms. We actually see that women-led firms perform better oftentimes than comparable men-led firms. So if we compare micro women-led firms to micro men-led firms in the same country, we typically find almost no difference between them in their use of e-commerce and in their export participation and in their growth. And in many markets, we have actually found that women-led firms perform better on these indicators, which also gives us the confidence to enable women-led firms to start, or women start their own businesses and digitize and get on these marketplaces. So today, I think Noah, others have already given us a great roadmap, and you have done amazing work in PIFs to analyze the challenges for e-commerce development. So I won't go any deeper on those, only to say that these are some of the challenges we'll be tackling today, and we very much look forward to great ideas that the panelists will have in each of these areas of SME capacity for e-commerce and use of digital payments and logistics and fulfillment of e-commerce orders. And so, we're very much of the opinion that all the different pieces in the enabling environment have to come together to enable SME e-commerce. Everything is, all these pieces are necessary, but none of them is sufficient on their own. And that's what we're going for, is solving for the different challenges in these different areas today. So here is our roadmap. You'll fill in the blanks in the next coming couple of hours, and very much look forward to then continuing this dialogue and collaboration with PIFs and our E-Trade Alliance partners and USAID, and many colleagues here on the call going forward as well. So thank you very much for joining, and very much looking forward to the dialogue.
Thank you, Kati. And before I continue, I'd like to sincerely apologize to Noah and Kati. The transition there, my fire alarm in my apartment went off right before Noah was finishing, and you may have frantically seen me try to go out onto my balcony, but it was still loud out there. So I'm embarrassed, and I hope that you'll forgive me for the challenges of a Zoom meeting. That's never happened before. And of course, it's when I'm hosting the event. So I sincerely apologize, and I hope that that will not happen again. It lasted a minute and then it was over. So, okay, let me kind of get back on track here.
We're glad you're safe. We're glad you're safe.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah. I don't think that's true. There is no fire. It was just a disturbance to my meeting here, so my event. But thank you so much, Kati, for all of that great information, and for all of our speakers so far who have opened the event. Mr. Henry Puna, Ms. Regina Mckenzie, Mr. Noah Kubak, and Dr. Kati Suominen.